Hello friends, welcome to my channel. So in this video we will learn how to use Python to make website in just 5 minutes. Yes, you heard correct, it's just 5 minutes. So with some framework we should be able to build a website quickly in 5 minutes. So the reason behind making this video is when we will be going through the machine and deep learning projects, we need to host those projects on the website. So this video will help you to understand how to make the website, and once you have the website ready, you can deploy your machine and deep learning projects on this website so that you can make it useful for anyone who wants to use those projects. So let's get started. So let's start with how the website works. So we will use as vinayai.lab.com as an example. So let's say you decided to visit the Vinay AI Lab website by typing that in the URL https or http and then /www.vinayailab.com, or simply just put like vinayailab.com in your web browser. So what happens after that is, through the internet connection, so your browser initiate a connection to the web server by first converting the domain name. So the domain name is Vinay AI Lab into an IP address. So each of these domain names have an IP address. So basically it converts that into the IP address, and then there is a called domain name services, DNS services they call it, and then that gives the location where exactly these IP address is being hosted and all the files are being stored there. So basically it sends you to the web server. So that web server stores all the necessary files to display the pages of the website on your computer. So typically all the pages, that is basically the HTML, the JavaScript and the CSS. So all these pages are being hosted there. So that web server actually send that back to the browser. So what happens is, so basically if we summarize it, so once the contact is being made between the web server and the client, so what happens is the browser requests the data from the web server using HTTP or HTTPS. So HTTPS is a secure layer, and then the server delivers back all these data to the browser, so those HTML pages and the other pages, and then the browser converts them into the format that is displayed on the web browser. So typically a web server stores and delivers the content for a website, and it helps to make a communication between the web browser and the web server using a HTTP protocol. So if you might have heard about, like when you are building a website or already build a website, you heard about the web hosting. So web hosting is basically a space that we purchase on a web server to store those files. So let's break it down, like what are the different files are being stored. So we will make it pretty simple. We will just talk about HTML, CSS and JavaScript. For a simple website, you just require these three pieces. And if your website is dynamic, then you require JavaScript. So HTML is basically, they call it, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's the code of every page. So essentially it declares what you're going to see on the page, and it appears in a series of tags like a div tag, a tag, body, template, title, and so it describes the element type, attribute, what all different contents are there. And the second piece is the CSS, so that's called Cascading Style Sheets, and which specify the style of HTML, so affecting like what are the size, color, position, animation of the text that appear in the HTML. And the last piece is the JavaScript. So JavaScript basically manipulate the HTML element and create dynamic functionality within a web page. So in short, the HTML provides the structure of the page, CSS provides the styling for a page, and then JavaScript provides the behavior of a page. So how the Python is playing a role in this? So because as we are learning the Python, so Python has an HTTP libraries that allows you to create HTTP servers. And here we are talking about Flask and Django server. So Flask and Django are two powerful web framework designed for web application development. So it consists of implementation of common functionality of web application, which includes like web servers, web services, web APIs, web resources, and both Django and Flask are free and open source. Each one have their own advantage and a disadvantage. The choice of framework would really based on what are you planning to develop. So for heavy application, we use Django framework as it supports lots of functionality, and if your application is lightweight, so we go for Flask framework. So if you are a Python developer and about to start, I recommend using a Flask framework for simple applications because as it grabs the basics of Python development, and then moving forward when your project is more complex, then you can transfer to the Django framework because it has lots of other functionality that Flask doesn't support. Okay, so I'm assuming now you get some better understanding how the website work. So let's do some actual action. So let's start creating the website using Flask. So I'll be using PyCharm IDE for this. Very strong library, very strong IDE for writing the Python code. I already made a lot of videos on PyCharm, so please visit the channel for how the PyCharm work. And the good part is it comes with like when you create a new project. So I'll start with creating a new project. So let's say first the website. So you see it creates a virtual environment when I create the website. When I'm using any other IDE or the tools, the developer tools, you need to set up a virtual environment as well. But here it comes with setting up the virtual environment as soon as you create a website. So virtual environment basically helps that you have your own world of packages for this specific project. So you're not touching the other packages that are installed on your machine. So it's only specific to this specific project. Okay, so now you can see a new project is being created. So if we want to check what all different packages exist in this particular project, we can go to PyCharm preferences and then project. So Python interpreter. So it has a pip tool, setup tools, and we also pip. So we can install either by going to the terminal here, and then we can go for the pip install Flask, or we can do directly from here. So pip basically is a package management system in Python. So it is used to install software packages. So it basically connects you to the inline repository of public packages called Python packages index. So but we can do it directly from Python interpreter here as well. So I can go and search for Flask. So the first one, so I can just go and click install. So it doesn't take much time. Okay, pretty fast. So now it is installed, so I can close this. Okay, so now the Flask is being installed in this project. So when I start writing any of the code, for like any new library or the package, I usually go and read the documentation, so I get some enough information about it. So I prefer following the same approach to you as well, so that you get a better understanding of that package or the framework or any of the library you're using. So you can go to flaskpalettesprojects.com. So this is the one that has the whole complete documentation about the Flask. So let's go to quick start, and then so in order to use the Flask, here is a sample code. So from Flask import. So let's copy this, and then let's go to our PyCharm. So here I will be creating a project, the Python file here. So I'll name this as web server. Okay, and I will just copy paste it. So let's go through a few lines here. So basically, underscore name is what this is saying is it's a main file. So if I need to check this, so what I can do is I can just go and print this, print underscore name, and then run. Just run this. So yeah, so it's saying it's a main file. So whenever we want to run it, it goes and check for the main file. So let's close this out, and then so this line, what it is saying is app.root directory. So it's saying anytime you reach to the root directory, run the below code. So basically there is nothing after, so it's saying it's a root directory. In order to run the Flask, we have to run export Flask app and the Python file name. So let's go here and replace hello with web server. Okay, perfect. Now we have to see give Flask run. Okay, so now you can see it is showing us an IP address where it's running. So it's a local host. It's running in our laptop. So let's copy this, and then what we can do is we can see what it is showing. So let's wonderful. So now you can see that the website is running in our local host, and it's showing what we have entered here in the root directory. So we can inspect this page as well. So in order to do that in the Chrome browser, you just go and inspect and see what all different files are coming from the web server. So what it's happening here is, as I explained, so browser is making call to the web server, and web server is giving us the response. So we have to go into the network, and let's refresh this again. So you can see that there is a document that is coming, and then the response is hello world. And this is the preview of the response. And if we go to the element, so the beautiful part with Flask is it's actually converting this into HTML by itself. We don't need to do that conversion. So you can see the whole HTML is generated, even though we haven't defined that in the in our file. So let's make some small changes also here. Okay, so now let's make a change here. So let's say if I do here is hello AI lab and save it. So when we go back here and then refresh this, it is not making that change. So the reason behind is it's not running in the developer mode. So we have to change that in the developer mode. So let's see in the documentation. So let's see in the debug mode. Yes, okay. So let's go into the debug mode, and it says that to enable the development feature, set the Flask environment as development. So let's copy this and then see if that make a quick change here. So what we have to do is, first of all, for coming out of it from, you have to press Control and C. Okay, now let's clear this out, and then we say development. Okay, and then we say Flask run. Perfect. So now you say the debug mode is on, and it is again running on the same localhost server. So let's refresh it. Okay, awesome. So now it's a real-time change. So let's do one more test. So say AI and ML lab. Let me save that. As soon as I save, you can see it detected the change and it restart. And then let's go back here and refresh this. Awesome. So now it's a real-time change. So that way you can make a quick change. You don't need to rerun the server again and again. So far in the previous video, we have created our project first website, and then we have created a Python file web server, and we are importing the library Flask, and using this Flask library, I'm able to create the app route to the root directory, and then Once we hit the root directory, it's showing this message. And also we are running our web server on this specific local host URL. So it's 127.0.100, and also we are running this in the development mode, so we can make a real-time changes and then it will reflect that on our localhost website real-time. So let's go back to our website. So here you can see the website is also running. It's on the same port, same IP address, and then when I refresh this, so it's coming status as 0, so that means the web server is responding with the OK message, and also this is the document that is coming as a response. So far this is what we have achieved. So in this video, so let's start with creating our HTML page. So what I'm doing here is I'll go to the project, right click, new, and then HTML file. So let's say I'll give this file as index.html. Okay, awesome. So this is the best part with PyCharm. It auto creates the whole structure of the HTML file. It starts with the HTML tag and the head, meta, title, body. So let's give this as lab as a title, and then in the body I can define as welcome to AI lab website. Okay, so now I have created the HTML file. So in order to send this file using Flask, what we have to do is we have to import the render template class from the Flask library. So if we have to go back to my Python file, and then here I have to import render template, and then in order to pass this render template, so what I have to do is instead of returning this, I have to just remove this and return the render template, and I have to give the file name here, so it's index.html. So what is happening here is, so let me save this first. So what is happening here is I'm telling the Flask that okay, render this template, and the template name is index.html. So it will go and look for that index.html template and then render this. So as it is running in debug mode, so it should be real time. So let's go to the website and check that. So let me refresh this. So it seems it's not able to find this index.template. So maybe there is an issue probably over here. So I deliberately did that. The reason behind is I want you to learn, like if you run into real-time issue, how to resolve that. So let's go to the documentation and check what went wrong here. So if I go to documentation, and as I'm talking about the template, so I can just go to rendering template, and in the rendering template it mentioned that we follow the same format, but it says that Flask will look for templates in the template folder. So as our index file is not in the template folder, that's why it's not able to render it. So let's create a template folder and move our file in that template folder. So let's go and create a new directory, and I will name this as templates. Okay, and then I will move this index.html template to this, and then okay, so now the template is moved over here, and let's go back to our file as well, and then let's see how this should work. Let me save this now. Okay, now let's refresh our website. Awesome. So now you can see that now it's able to render the HTML file, and if I click on this, the whole response is coming as an HTML file with the title, as you can see, the title, and also the body of the website. Okay, so now let's add a CSS to this. So in order to add the CSS, so let's first go to the documentation that how the CSS should be added when we are using a Flask. So we can go to the documentation and look for, as CSS and JavaScript is considered as static files, we can go into the static file and we can check, and it says just create a folder called static in your package, and then it will be available as this in the application. So let's go to the folder, let's go to the project folder and add this. Okay, so now what we have to do is let's go and create a new directory called static. Okay, so in that we will be creating our CSS file. So I'll just go and say style.css. Okay, perfect. And then we'll just change the background color as light blue and save this. So now like when we send the HTML, when we send the files to the browser, so the browser only reads the HTML file, so it cannot reach to the CSS file. So it just reads the HTML file, and from there it finds, okay, there is a CSS also defined and there is a JavaScript also defined, so we need to define the CSS file in the HTML. So let's go to our HTML file in the template, and here we have to define that as a link in the head. So we can say link, and then href, and then here we have to define static style.css. Okay, and then there are two more attributes we have to define. So rel should be style sheet. Okay, and then we have to define here the type. So type should be text.css. Okay, looks good. Let's move this a little bit. Okay, so now the similar way we can define JavaScript as well. So let's create a JavaScript file also. So you can say here file, and then I can name this as script.js. So in this JavaScript file we'll just add console.log, and let's say lag. Okay, so now we need to add that in index also, so that should be defined in the body. So we just say script, and in the script we define src, and here the same static, and then slash script.js. Okay, so everything looks good. Let's save this, and let's go to our website. Let's go to our website to see everything is working fine, and the real-time changes are also saved. Okay, so I'm at the website. Let me refresh this. Seems to be there is an issue with the style.css. Okay, let's see what we missed here. We can go to the documentation and check. So it says static.style.css. So it seems like we have missed something. So let's go back to our file again. Okay, so let's see. We remove this from here and remove this also from here and save it. Okay, seems like the problem was with this extra bracket. Okay, so let's save it and go back again. So let me refresh this. Awesome. So now you can see that the server is responding with style.css and also with the JavaScript. And then if we go to the JavaScript here, so it's returning the console log. So what we have, if we go to the console, so this is also, so it's returning and style.css both. So this is the way we can pass the JavaScript, HTML, and also the CSS file back to the browser, and the browser reads the HTML file and render that on the page. So sometimes you want to make things dynamic. So for an example, so let's say if I want to write here, this is my AI Lab website number 1, and then 2 and 3, but it should change dynamically. So the Flask gives you a very easy way to do that. So it can be easily done by having curly braces. So let's say for an example, I say website number. It's just a example. You can do a lot of fancy stuff with this. So let's say if I put it here 2 plus 5, and then if I just save it, and then let me go to my website. So let me refresh the website. So you can see it's pretty simple. You just define that in the curly braces. So underneath what is happening here is if I go to the documentation, so Flask is using the Jinja templating language. So it's inbuilt in the Flask, and this gives you an extra power to dynamically update the page. Another important thing that I want you to explain is called variable rules. So basically what is happening here is when we want to read something from the URL. So for an example, some variables are being passed in the URL and you want to read that in your Python. So the Flask gives you an easy way to do that. So that is defined in the variable rule. So if I go here, so you can see here the variable rules are being defined, and then it's a very easy way. What you have to do is you can just define that using these signs, and also if it is a string, integer, float, so you have a different way to define. If it is an integer colon path colon, so that way you can define. So let's do a username here. So if I go back to my project, okay, so I am on the project. So let me copy this and make something dynamic that we can read it from the URL. So we just have to give username. So here we can pass this as a parameter username. Now in order to pass it to the HTML template, we just have to give there as a parameter. So now the username will be stored in this name, and I can use that in my HTML. So let me go to my HTML here. Okay, and then let's remove this for now. And here I can define welcome and let's say name, and let's just save it. And now I'm going back to the website here, and let's refresh the website. Okay, seems like both the functions have the same name, so we have to go and fix that. So let's say if I make it as home page and then save this. Now let's refresh this. Okay, so I think we have to define that in double curly braces. We missed this. Okay, now save it. Let's go back to the website. Refresh this. This is looking good. Now let's say if I add here as name Ram. Awesome. So let's change it to my name Vinay. Welcome Vinay. So this is pretty dynamic. You can just read it from the URL and in your Python file, and then pass it to the template so that you can make things dynamic on the website. So far we have learned the basics of Flask. We understand what servers do, and we also know what browsers do. So now let's make our website look impressive. Like, this is a very basic website, but that helps to tie different concepts together. But now we will be making a very impressive website that you can use for your business, or can show to your employer or add it to your resume. That will make you stand out during the interview. And for this, we don't have to write the HTML, CSS, JavaScript that we were writing before. So luckily, if you will Google anywhere, you can find something like lots of free HTML templates. So that's like you can find really nice websites that you can use it for free. And I'll add the link in the description box so you can find it out what works best for you. And for those websites, everything is pre-built. You just need to download it. So let me show you that. So like one of the example is this HTML5up.net. Here there are lots of free websites available. So these are templates. So you can just free download, and then I'll show you that how to use it. But there is like a bunch of free templates available. The same, there is a creativetim.com, and then we have a mashups template. So there is also pretty impressive templates, and then free HTML5.co, and then we have this one. So I'm showing one of the from free HTML5. So this is pretty impressive template. You just download it, and then after that, again, there is another one from free HTML5. So we will be using the free CSS from freecss.com. One is KitKinder. So it's basically Kids Learning Center website, and it has lots of different pages also. And so we will be downloading this, and then I'll show you how to configure this in the PyCharm, and then how to make this work using Flask. So I have downloaded the KitKinder template, and it comes in the zip file. So I have unzipped the folder. So this is the folder, and if you want to use the same template, I'll be adding the link in the description box. So if I open this, so this is the file. It has HTML files that we already know. It has CSS, it has some images, JavaScript file, some library and mail. We don't require this one, and some bootstrap. So that also we can just add it, but it's not required for now. So what we have to do is we have to move the HTML into our template folder in the PyCharm, and the rest goes into the static. These four HTML, and so let's copy this, and then I can go to my PyCharm, and this is my PyCharm folder for first website. So what I can do is I can remove the old one. So this I will move it to trash, and then I will paste these four templates, and then I have these four also. So let me do one thing. Let me fast forward this video, and then I will jump right away when I have moved all the HTML into the template and rest into the static folder. So now you can see I have moved all the HTML pages into the template and all the other files into the static folder. So now let's go to our project in the PyCharm and see how it looks. Okay, so here we are on the project. So it's as soon as I come back to my project, you will see all these already populated. So let's run our server. So it seems like the server is not running because we are coming back to this project after some time. So let's run our terminal. Okay, so now in order to start our web server, we have to call it export Flask app equals to our Python file name. So that is web server. Okay, and then we have to run that in the development mode so that we can see the real-time changes. So this will be equal to development, and then our flask.run. Okay, so now it's running on our localhost port. Okay, so here is the website that we were building. Doesn't look that pretty. So take a pause and pause the video for some time and think about it, why it is like this. So I hope you get an idea. If not, let's do it together. So always when you run into an issue, let's look at the network first. So we can go to inspect and then look at the network and refresh this page again. Okay, so you can see there is lots of red here, and mostly what is happening here is so it's not able to find the CSS, JavaScript, and all the images, and that's why it's 404 status. So we have to fix this. So let's go to our project again. Okay, so if I'll open the index.html, so let's make this little small. Okay, and then if I look at it, so you can see this is looking directly for image. But as I mentioned, like for the Flask, all the static component should be in the static folder and all the HTML should be in the template. So what we have to do here is we need to add a static here. So static slash. So this explains the current directory and then the static. So similar way, wherever we see that, so like the same way the CSS, we have to add the static here as well. So quick way is you can use the find and replace option. So for an example, so let's look somewhere the images we have. Okay, so a quick way to look at it, let's say if I'm looking for IMG here, so what I can do here is so Command R if you have a Mac, so or you can go to this, so you can go to edit, find and replace. So what you can do here is, so if there is an image, so there are 18 instances here, so what we can do here is slash static slash img, and then let's see if I want to check this one, this is replaced, this is replaced, this is replaced, so we can just do replace R, so that way you can see this is fixed. So similarly you have to go for each and every HTML files and make that change, and not only for images, you have to go for CSS, you have to go for JavaScript. So make that change. I will fast forward this and then I will see you after you make all these changes, and then we will jump right away after making this change and see how the website looks like. Look at this. This is so beautiful. If I scroll, this whole website looks so beautiful with all the data, and then it's running on a local host. And let's check each of the tab. You can see each tab is also working perfectly because we have fixed all the HTML files. Gallery, we have all the images here, and then we have the contact us. So pretty much this website looks so beautiful, and as I promised, it just took us a couple of minutes to build a kids school website having all the details. Similar way you can build any sort of website, like for your business, your portfolio to showcase your projects for your job. So just get the template and now you know the whole process how to make the website. So one important thing that I want to cover before closing this video is the contact us, because now when your website is running, we want the people to contact you as well when they visit the page. So currently there is nothing happening here. So what we will be doing here is that when anyone fills this information, the data will come from browser to your server. So in order to do that, we in the Flask documentation, so let's go to the Flask documentation. We have an object called the request object. So let's click on that. And then, so this is the way to get the data from the browser to the server. So let's copy this and we will go to our project. Okay, so in our Python file, we will copy paste the code from the request object. So we don't need all of these because this is for login when anyone logs into the website. So we are not building anything login here. So in case you want to learn that, also please leave the comment in the comment section and I'll make a video on that. So, and if you notice here, I have made this dynamic. So what is happening here is, as I explained in the previous video, you can pass from the URL parameter and read that in your Python file. So I'm just passing the page name, and as soon as if I put index.html, it goes and passes this in the render template and shows that. So that way you don't need to create a method for the functions for each of these template file. So you just create the HTML and it will start working using this generic function. So now let's remove this. We don't need this one. So what we will be doing it, we will change it to submit form, and then these are two methods here. So post is used actually when, so first of all, get is used when browser wants to send information to the server, and post is used when browser wants to save the information to the server. So we will be using post here because we are submitting the form and these details we want to store in at our server. So let's change this one also to submit form. Okay, and in the render template, what we can do is, for now, just show thanks for submitting the form. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to go to the form page. Okay, so in the contact HTML, we have to search for the button. So button, and then yeah, here we have the submit button. So in order to send the data from the browser to the server, we have to look for the form tag. So in the button there should be form tag. Yes, here it is. So that form tag we have to, so it works this way. So in the form tag, it looks for the there is an attribute called action. So that action is actually called, so that the method defined in the action is called when we hit the submit button. So we can define here the method action, and then we can define here submit form, and then we have to define the method. So this method is post, so we can say post. Okay, so now we have defined both the two important attribute, missed D here. Okay, the two important attributes. Now let's go back to our Python file. Okay, so what we have to do here is, let's get the data. So as soon as it hits, it will call this function. So now we need to read that. So in order to read that, first of all, we need to import one of the class from Flask. So the class is called request. So request. So now we have to import the request. Okay, and then what we have to do is, using the request, we can read the data. So we can say if request, okay, yeah, request dot method is equal to post. Okay, so we can store the data in a variable, and that will be a dictionary because there is a lot of values are coming, so we are storing that in the dictionary, and we can do that using a form method, and then we can say to tick. Okay, now we have this in the data, so let's print that also to get an idea. Okay, and then if there is an error, so we can say else, and we can say return something went wrong, please contact support@support.com. Okay, so now let's see how this is working. So let me save this and let's go to our website. Okay, so let me refresh this, and now let's open the network as well. So inspect, and then we can go to the network, and let's, okay, so now fill up some information. So we say XYZ, and then email, blah blah blah, and then subject, and message, and then send. Perfect. Thank you for submitting the form. So let's see what is happening here in the network file. So we have submitted the form, and then the response, okay, thanks for submitting. We can see the header, and then in the header, okay, so I think we missed one thing, because when I'm seeing the print data and it's coming as empty, so seems like we missed something in the contact us form. So let's check that, what is happening wrong here. So I'm also doing this real time so that we can learn together, and also it will help you to do some debugging if you run into some errors. So let's see, we have action form, okay, and we have defined this is the button. Okay, yes, I got it. So what we missed here is we need to define the name attribute in the input tags. So let's define the name here. So I'll name it as this is the first one, so name, and then here I will define it as email. Okay, and then here I can say it's subject. Okay, and then this is the last one, and this one we can define it as name equals to message. Okay, so now it looks good. We have everything here added. Okay, so now let's save this, and let's go back and to our website and check this again, and let's make this little bigger so that we can see the response also. Okay, now I'm in the contact us form, so let's refresh this, and let's open the network here and make it a little smaller so that we can submit the form. And now let me put it XYZ, blah 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 blah, and then just send this. Okay, thanks for submitting the form. I'll go to the network here. The form is being submitted. Perfect, I have all the information here, and then we see, got it. So now you can see I have a payload, and it's saying that this information is being sent, message and all the details. Now let's go to our PyCharm and look whether we get this data or not. Okay, awesome. Now you can see that we can see the name, email, subject and message. So everything is showing now. So that is awesome. So now let's do one thing. Instead of showing this as a text, what we can do is we can redirect them to the thank you page so that it looks little pretty also and doesn't break the flow. So what we can do that with, we can create a new thank you page, and then we can redirect the user to that page. So let's say if I just make a copy of this, so what I can do here is just copy this one and I can paste it here itself, and I can say thank you. Okay, so now there is a thank you page, and what we can do here is we can just remove the form part because we don't require that. So let's go to the button one. This is the footer name. Okay, end of this. So let's search for form. Okay, so now this is the form, so we can see where exactly this is. Okay, so this one we can just remove this whole section here, and now save this. And what we can do is go back to our Python file, and then in order to redirect we have to import another class, so that is, we call it redirect. Okay, and then what we can do here is we can say this one as redirect, and then just we can define our page name slash thankyou.html. Okay, now I'll save this. Okay, so we missed one thing, is writing the thank you message in the thank you HTML. So where we have removed the form, we can add the thank you message also. So I say thanks for contacting us, we will connect with you shortly. Okay, so now let's save this and go to our website. Okay, so here we are. So let's refresh this and let me fill some information here, and let's send this. Okay, so now it is visible over here, so you can place it wherever you like. You can search the element and then go to the div statement and add this message in the on the thank you HTML page. So let's go to the PyCharm now. Okay, so now let's look at here. So you can see the information that we entered is coming here. But one thing is, we are not saving this information anywhere. So as you learned a lot, like how to make the website using PyCharm, and I think now you have the good understanding of the concept. So there is a small homework for you, that please save this information in some text or a CSV file. I prefer a CSV file, so I'll give you a little hint that how you can do that. And you can, if you run in any problem, just add that comment in the comment section and I'll respond to that. So you can just create a database.csv file, like you can name anything, and then go to the server. So currently we are printing this data, but instead of printing, we will write that in the CSV. So how to do that? Let me show you a sample code. So you can go to the document Python documentation and then search for CSV, import CSV. So in that import CSV, this is a CSV writer. So what you can do is import the CSV, and with open you can give the same database.csv, whatever the name of the file you want to, and then give the write. This is mode as a write, and then the new line, so that the entered value will go to the new line. And then what you can do is, just as a parameter it is saved, and then you can just csv.writer and give the parameter name, and then the delimiter here, it is a comma because the values are separated by comma, and quote character you can give double quotes, and then this is, so you can go through this documentation and read more about it to get some information. So this is more of a self-learning that will help you to go through the document and then read more about it. And so that way you can write whatever the data is coming into the CSV and then store that information in your local. So this concludes this whole session, how to make website using Python. But an important note here is now my server and database are running in my local machine, and if I close this, then my website will stop running. So in the next video I will show you how we can deploy this website to a free web hosting service. I'm talking about free, so that your website will be always up and running. You can share the link to any of your employer, your friends, or for your business colleagues, or anyone. So that way you have a full-fledged running website on a web hosting server. It's not running in a local, and that will run 24 hours. So this is all about how to run the website with Python. So for the deploying the website, please go to my channel and look for that video, and please subscribe to this channel, as it gives me a signal that you guys are learning something from my video and want to learn more and more. And thanks for watching this video.